This is Scott Spears, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Scott Spears Now, and we have got really what you would call an historic event coming up here in Marion on July the 31st, Monday, July the 31st. Now, I'm going to grab my paper here so I get the facts on this right. Monday, July 31st, we will be broadcasting live from the Marion County Historical Society, located at 169 East Church Street here in Marion. Now, inside the Marion County Historical Society is the Mary Ellen Withrow Museum. It's been there just a little over a year now. Now, I don't believe anybody has ever done a live broadcast from there. We're going to do that on Monday, July 31st. We'll be down by Mary Ellen's Museum. From 8 to 9 that morning, Mary Ellen will be on with me, and we will be discussing the museum and her career. And then from 9 to 10 a.m., joining us in the museum will be the 64th governor of the state of Ohio, Dick Celeste. 1983 to 1991, he was governor. He will be there live and in person from 9 to 10 a.m., talking about his new book, In the Heart of It All, which has recently been released here in Ohio. Now, Governor Celeste will be on with me from 9 to 10, and then Mary Ellen will come back, and I believe for the first time in quite some time, Mary Ellen will tell us about this here in just a second, but there will be a joint interview from 10 to 10:30 in which Mary Ellen and Dick Celeste will be together, and one of the things we're going to discuss is issue 1. Governor Celeste is very passionate about this, and I know Mary Ellen has an opinion about this. We're really going to discuss it on Monday. Now, that'll all be the live broadcast. You can catch that on the radio from 8 a.m. till 10:30. Remember, Mary Ellen from 8 to 9, Dick Celeste from 9 to 10, and then together, they'll come together from 10 to 10:30. Then following that, at the Marion County Historical Society, 169 East Church Street, from 10:30 till 11 a.m., Dick Celeste is going to stick around and sign copies of his book. His book will be there for sale. You can get a copy, you can get it autographed, get a picture with the governor, and guess what? Just when you think it can't get any better than that, Mary Ellen's going to stick around and give tours of her museum during that half hour, and if you want a picture with Mary Ellen and the governor, how about that? Mary Ellen and the governor together on this morning, Monday, July 31st, 10:30 to 11 a.m., book signing at the Historical Society, 169 East Church Street here in Marion. Mary Ellen, we're going to have a lot of fun on the 31st.
Oh, we are. It's going to be busy.
Now, Dick Celeste, tell us your relationship, when you first met him, and what your relationship with him has been.
Well, I knew him, before I ran for office. I'm trying to remember when I first met him, and right now I can't recall, but he was a good governor. I really liked working with him. We had a meeting on Wednesday, I think it was the first Wednesday of the month, every month, and all of the elected officials, we were all Democrats. We had all been elected in the first election, and in the second election we were all re-elected. And we would meet on Wednesday morning, have breakfast at his at the governor's mansion, and talk about what we wanted to accomplish, and it was very effective.
Now, you and I have done a lot of interviews. I think we even spent an election day one time with Governor Strickland. But yes, Governor Celeste, because he lives out of the state, we really haven't got to spend a whole lot of time with. And it's interesting, right, because he was the governor when you were the state treasurer for the most part.
Yes, the whole time.
The whole time.
Yes. Yes, and then I won again when Voinovich won after Governor Celeste. But I did not enjoy working with Governor Voinovich like I did with Governor Celeste.
What was the difference, just for people who might wonder, between working with Celeste and Voinovich?
Well, he ignored me.
Voinovich?
Yes. He wouldn't introduce me when I was on the stage with him. He would introduce everybody but me, and my staff would be sending notes wildly to him, and he would totally ignore me. And he was not. I think he was afraid I was going to run against him, and I did think about it. But
was that obviously because he thought you were going to run against him? But was that a party thing? Was he nice to any of the other Democrats in office at that time?
I don't know. It seemed like he was particularly nasty to me. Yeah, it seemed that way.
When we look at Governor Celeste, having him, because you became treasurer of the state in what year?
82.
82. And matter of fact, I think we have a picture of you as state treasurer.
Yeah, that's it.
That's Mary Ellen as state treasurer. In 82, Governor Celeste came to his position in 83, so a year after you. What was it like?
Well, no, we ran in 82.
And you took office in 83.
Yeah, took office in 83.
Yeah. What was so particularly strong about that ticket with Governor Celeste and yourself both on the ticket?
Well, that everybody that was running, I mean, usually everybody doesn't win that's on the same ticket, and we all won, and that was terrific. Yeah.
When you look back at the governors of Ohio who you've seen and worked with, where does Governor Celeste rank?
Well, right up there. I tell you, he paid for my TV. I only had one spot on TV, and I didn't have the money to pay for TV, and he bought that spot for me. I don't think I would have gone without it.
Really?
Yeah.
And how much in touch have you stayed with Governor Celeste since he left office?
Well, of course, he's in Colorado, and he came back for Hillary's campaign, and I saw him then. And then he had a get-together with his people that worked with him, well, about a year ago. I think it was last fall. And I saw him then. I went to the event. But I haven't seen him very much. He goes to, he was, the ambassador to India when I was U.S. treasurer. And I had been to India before I was U.S. treasurer. I had gone to trek in the Himalayas, which was a real experience. Yeah, I got a little bit sick.
Oh.
Yeah, it was not. I said, it's one thing to get sick and ride in a car, but it's another thing to get sick and ride a horse.
Oh, not the best trip.
No.
No.
But it was fun, and we did go to the ambassador's residence, but it wasn't when Celeste was there. I was trying to think exactly when he was ambassador, but anyway, he still travels there takes people on trips to India, which is an interesting country.
One of the things he talks about in this book, and I know Mary Ellen has not had a chance to read it yet, but it is interesting. I did not realize how much he really did want to make a run for the presidency after his gubernatorial run, and somewhat during his gubernatorial run. Do you think he could have ever been a contender in the Democratic Party? John Glenn tried, it didn't work out for him. Do you think Governor Celeste could have?
Well, it's a crapshoot no matter who it is. And, things have to be right. And, yeah, he would have made a good president, I'm sure,
What kind of human being was and is he, if you were to meet him on the street, somebody who didn't know him?
He's just so friendly and easy to talk to, and he was just really a nice person. Yeah, he was great at giving speeches. I like to hear him speak. He's still really good at speeches. I was amazed at him when he had his speech at the when he got together with these former employees last fall. I just really enjoy listening to him.
Now, I was thinking about, have you ever done a joint interview with Governor Celeste?
Well, we had a link deposit presentation. He was involved. He signed the bill for the link deposit, and We've had some together, yes.
But it's been a little while.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's back when we were in office together.
And it'll be interesting, I think, on Monday, July 31st, to get there and see how things are now. Reflect back.
Oh, yes, right.
And also, I think something to talk about that morning from two people who were obviously very successful in the Democratic Party in this state. What's going on with the Democratic Party now in Ohio?
Right, yes, it's kind of sad.
It'll be interesting to get Governor Celeste's opinion, and again, that's Monday the 31st. Now, I know something he wants to talk about on Monday, and I'm sure you have an opinion on this, is issue 1.
Oh, yes.
Which a lot of money is being spent on this right now.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
August the 8th.
I've had so many people ask me how they should vote on it. They're confused, and why shouldn't they be?
And the theory on issue 1 right now is if you vote yes on issue 1, it will, I think it's a 60, is it 60%? Is that what they want to take it to?
Yeah,
60% vote to get a constitutional amendment on the ballot.
Right.
Now, right now, it's just a majority.
Right.
So if you vote yes, it will change it to 60%. If you vote no, it stays the way it is, just a simple majority. What do you think is going to happen with this, Mary Ellen? August the 8th.
Well, I hope that it doesn't pass. I really hope that everybody votes no, but I've heard some people say they're going to vote yes. It'll be a tough campaign. Listening to TV and trying to understand what they're trying to say is a little difficult.
When it comes to voting no on issue 1, why do you feel that it should stay the way it is?
I don't think we should have to have 60%. The thing is, they're going to put something on the ballot in November that's they're going to try to not get through, I guess. Or I don't know what they're trying to do, to be honest with you, but I'm voting no.
The underlying issue here, which I've heard from people who are going to vote both ways on this and support it both ways, is abortion.
Yes.
Because of Roe versus Wade being overturned in 2022, now abortion rights are left up to the states. And there is a theory now that if it got on the ballot in Ohio as a constitutional amendment, that it would pass. Matter of fact, I saw a statistic yesterday, 58% of registered voters in Ohio support abortion rights.
Okay. Yeah.
So that being said, a lot of people feel this is people's way who do not want abortion rights in Ohio to cut it off at the pass and not allow that amendment to ever even get to the voters. Do you feel that's the underlying issue here with this all of a sudden?
Well, it's to protect the vote for the abortion is what it is. Yeah.
You know, I was thinking about this the other day. It would do that if it passed. It might keep the abortion amendment off the ballot, but isn't it going to keep every other amendment off the ballot? I mean, I think it would be hard to get 60% on any amendment.
Well, why do they want to change? Why are they so desperate to change things? I think our Constitution is pretty good the way it is.
You know, I have heard people say, because we've talked about the Democratic Party and their state in Ohio right now. Around the country they're doing okay, but in Ohio not as well as they once did. That this, matter of fact, I spoke with the mayor on the radio on Tuesday, and he felt this could be the issue, abortion, that could help the Democrats out.
Mm-hmm. Right, I think so too. Everybody feels very strongly about it, especially women. Yeah.
Why has abortion always been an issue in presidential elections, gubernatorial elections, even though when you look at it, a small percentage of people get abortions? It's not very big at all in the grand scheme of things.
Well, you go back, it hasn't always been talked about. It was, women were doing crazy things to try to keep from having babies before there was the Roe versus Wade. They were doing things that were very dangerous to their health in order to keep from getting pregnant and to, have an abortion. You couldn't get an abortion. And It's just very sad that we have people that want to tell us how to run our lives, and we should have the option to say yes or no on our own bodies, not have somebody else telling us what to do.
This is interesting because a conversation has long been held when it comes to abortion that if it were involving a man, if it were telling a man to do something, that it wouldn't even be a question. Do you think that is true, that if it was some issue involving a man, that it would not ever be up for debate?
I think that's probably true. You just look at how women were treated, couldn't even vote. And then we had to use our husband's name. We couldn't be called by our own name. I think that's terrible. They wouldn't call me Mary Ellen Withrow. It had to be Mrs. Norman Withrow. And it was like nobody would think of using your name like that. Yeah, it was strange.
When we think about this, you have lived a great life, and you lived prior to Roe versus Wade in the early 1970s, and then we had Roe versus Wade for nearly 50 years, from the early 70s until 2022, and now we no longer have it. What are things better now for women than they were 20 years ago?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Really.
How did we get to the point then where we yanked away the right to choose?
Supreme Court. I mean, we put the wrong people on the Supreme Court, and you know who did that?
Yeah. Well, it is interesting that the Supreme Court did make this decision, which I guess kicks it back to the states.
Yeah.
And do you think if that amendment does make it to the ballot, the abortion amendment, that it will pass in Ohio?
I think it will. I think it's going to be a heavy vote everywhere. Yeah.
Do you think it's still seen as a horrible thing that if somebody gets an abortion for whatever reason they're doing it?
Well, I don't want to. I wouldn't want to ever have done that, but you should have the option. There's a lot of people that have had them, and it's their choice. But you need to have some option out of not having a child if you don't want to have one. And there's a lot of situations where this has been the case. In the case of rape, and there's a lot of that going on the way it sounds. Yeah.
The argument on this has often been lost, that it really is, it's not telling somebody to get an abortion. It's just giving somebody the right to have the choice to do that, should they want to or need to. But somehow that always gets lost in the, even the way it's labeled. Pro-life, pro-choice. Well, who isn't pro-life? I think we're all...
Right.
Nobody's pro-death.
No, that's right. But to make things so difficult, they were going to other countries to have abortions way back, and now they have to go to another state if their state doesn't have the right to have it. It makes things difficult.
It is interesting that when Governor Celeste will be here on Monday, July the 31st, we'll be talking about his book, and the subtitle of his book, now again, the actual title is in the heart of it all, but the subtitle is An Unvarnished Account of My Life in Public Service. Now, it is interesting that he talks about a lot of personal things in here and a lot of things he went through in his life. Would you find that hard to do, Mary Ellen, open up that wide? Because he is very honest, to his credit, in this book about personal things in his life.
Well, I have a book, but I didn't want it to go to the public. I wanted it to just be for my family, really, to remember what I had done. And I don't know. I think it takes a lot to talk about the things that he's talked about here in the book. It takes a lot of determination to do that, or the desire to let people know. Yeah.
Knowing Dick Celeste, are you surprised that he got as candid as he did in this book?
Yes, I'm a little surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Like I say, the books will be on sale on Monday, July the 31st, starting at 10:30 a.m. Remember, the interviews start that morning at 8 a.m. You can catch those on the radio, 8 a.m. until 10:30, and then the book signing, come down to the Historical Society, 169 East Church Street. Former Governor Celeste will be signing copies of the book, and Mary Ellen will give you a tour of her museum. Mary Ellen, when people go in the museum, what's the most important thing you want them to know?
I want them to know what I did when I was in office, that I, helped start the state quarters program, that I helped design the currency, and that I helped create Sacagawea, and that I created link deposits for the state of Ohio, and that I created Star Ohio for the state, and the things I did in Marion. They only had one place to pay their taxes when I went in office, and when I got done with it, they had 20 places to pay their taxes, and it's just those are the things I want people to know.
When you were coming up with these new ways of doing things, was there a lot of resistance from anybody, or did it go through fairly quick?
There wasn't resistance. And we also computerized the Treasury and the auditor's office, which was a big job, and that was a real plus. But no, there was not resistance. I didn't have any resistance.
What do you think it was your strength that allowed you to be able to do this where other people had not? Because a lot of things happened under your watch.
That's true. On the federal level, I think it just happened that way. But on the state level, I absolutely created the things that I did. And a lot of people, when they're in office, they just exist. They don't do anything new. And I had people tell me, don't start a new program. Just keep things going. But we created link deposits, and it was such a great program. In fact, both of my programs are still in existence, and we were able to give a lot of women businesses that wouldn't have had them because women had trouble borrowing money from the banks, and so we had a lot of women's businesses that were created under link deposit.
Link deposit is something I've heard a lot of business owners talk about. Explain to people as best you can, what is link deposit for people who don't understand?
Well, the purpose of it was for them to hire employees, and they had to go on the amount of about 20,000, I think it was, a person. And the amount then, when they borrowed the money, they paid 3% less than they would normally have paid for a CD. And we paid 3% more than we would normally have paid for that CD. And the state said that for every dollar that we paid out, we got $3 to $4 back in tax payments, and so then the first one we did was small business, and then we did the farmers, because the farmers were having trouble borrowing money because of the situation at that particular time, and I could invest 12% of my portfolio in link deposits if I wanted to, and so the whole program was a big success. And after I left office, they took my name off of it. It was called the Withrow plan. But the last time when the man ran against Scott Schertzer for state treasurer, he was using my link deposit program in his ad. for agriculture. And I said, that's my ad. I wonder if he really knows that. And I'm sure he does.
Do you have you had any relationships with any of the treasurers of the state of Ohio that have come after you?
Yes, yeah, I've known all of them practically, some better than others. Yeah, there's been a lot of treasures.
Is there one that sticks out in your mind?
Well, I could remember about all of them. Well, Rich Cordray, he sticks out in my mind pretty big.
Yeah.
Well, and there was Joe Teeters from Cincinnati, and there was, of course, the one that followed me was, what was his name? I can't remember his name. Anyway, I'll think of it tomorrow. But yeah, in fact, some of the treasurers were there just a short time. Mm-hmm. They were appointed and they'd leave, and yeah, I had an employee that and I just had talked to not too long ago. She said she counted off, I think it was 6 or 7 treasures after me. She was still there.
Does a lot of the staff stick around like that?
Well, they did, yeah. They were able to stay if they wanted to, which is good, because you never know,
Now, when you came into that position from county treasurer in Marion, what were the big differences?
Well, I had 5 people working for me in Marion. I had 182 working for me in Columbus. A lot more money. $87 billion I was responsible for. And it was a heavy load.
Well, what is the job of the treasurer of a state?
Well, the job is to invest the money and collect the money and protect the money.
What makes a good investment?
A safe investment. You don't want to lose money. And I earned over $2 billion for the state of Ohio. Yeah.
How did you choose the investments that you picked?
I had a man that was doing my investments, and he was very good.
That's interesting. When you hire somebody or bring somebody in to your staff, what makes a good employee to you?
Loyalty and doing the job.
Have you ever had employees that you had to let go of?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's that like to go through that?
Not fun.
No. Do you ever stay awake at night thinking about it when you have to let somebody go?
Oh, yeah. Yes. I've thought about that a lot. If maybe I would have handled it a little bit differently, Yeah.
It's we're going to take a break here, but we've got a whole nother half hour with Mary Ellen, 40th Treasurer of the United States. And don't forget, Monday, July 31st, we've got a big event, 8 to 9 a.m., Mary Ellen Withrow on the air with us, 9 to 10 a.m., Governor Celeste, and 10 to 10:30, Mary Ellen and Governor Celeste together talking issue 1 and other things. Then the book signing in the heart of it all, 10:30 to 11 a.m., at the Marion County Historical Society, 169 East Church Street, and Mary Ellen will be giving self-guided tours of her museum. We'll be back with Mary Ellen to talk a lot more right after this. Scott Spears back here on Scott Spears Now with one of my favorite people, 40th Treasurer of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow, and we've got a big event coming up on Monday, July the 31st, last day of the month of July. That's an easy way to remember it. Monday, July the 31st, we're going to be doing a live broadcast, I believe the first live broadcast from the Mary Ellen Withrow Museum, located in the Marion County Historical Society at 169 East Church Street here in Marion. From 8 to 9 that morning, listen to your radio because I will be on with Mary Ellen. We'll be talking about her career in the museum, live from the museum. Then from 9 to 10 a.m., I'll be joined by the 64th Governor of the state of Ohio from 1983 till 1991. Dick Celeste, he'll be live with us there, and I believe his first trip to the Mary Ellen Museum, which that'll be interesting and fun and exciting to reminisce about things.
Yeah.
And then from 10 to 10:30, Mary Ellen and Governor Celeste will come together on the air with me to discuss issue 1 and their time working together in the state of Ohio. And then from 10:30 to 11, It's open to the public. You can come down to the Historical Society, 169 East Church Street, and get a copy of Governor Celeste's new book, In the Heart of It All, an unvarnished account of my life in public service. And Mary Ellen will give you a tour of the museum herself, which, how often can that happen? That's a rare, rare treat. So, 169 East Church Street, here in Marion, Monday, July 31st. It all kicks off at 8 a.m. and runs through 11 a.m. that morning. You know, Mary Ellen, this book it's a very thick book, which is good though, but it's entertaining. You love to read. What makes a good book to you? A good political book? This is over 300 pages.
When they tell their stories about things that happened, I like to read about that.
Do you like when they get personal? And I say read it for yourself, but Governor Celeste certainly does get candid. Do you like when they get candid about their life?
Yes. You want to know how they felt about things, so I'm sure it'll be very interesting to read that.
Yeah. When you were writing your book for your family, did you, because I know we talked for several years that you might write one for the public. Why did you finally decide not to?
Well, I didn't want to be sued. And the gal that was helping me write it, she said, "You're not going to be sued. You say things in a way that they can't sue you." And but all I could think about was somebody saying, "Well, that didn't happen." If I had something in my book and they'd say that wasn't true, and it just bothered me, and so I just kept it within the family. But then I've got one at the library; they can read it there if they want to read it. So
now, for people who would maybe like to go to the library and read that, what is your book like? What would they find in it? It's got a lot of good pictures. I was able to see it.
Well, it's it's an interesting book. It's not a big book. It's not near as thick as that. But it sort of tells people what my life was like, starting with how I grew up, and that people like to know how you did things. I've found that people like to know how I got into politics. And when I think about it, it was because two women teachers came and asked me to run for the school board, and there were no women on the school board, so there would not have been a man ever ask me to run for school board. I never thought of that in those terms before. And then I had never thought of running for office. And so after they asked me to do this, I thought about it and I decided I wanted to do it. And then after I did it, I really enjoyed talking to people and having the right to do things that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. And so that's the reason I think that you want people to know, because that could help somebody say something to someone sometime that might cause them to do something they never would have thought that they could do.
When you were running for school board, Elgin School Board in 1969, as a woman, as you say, then you couldn't even use your own name, did you think you were going to win?
Oh, I didn't know. I had 5 men running against me, and every time one of them would get in the race, Norman would say, "You think you can't beat them?" Mm-hmm. and he'd give me encouragement. And no, I had no idea. My speeches were terrible. I just know they were horrible. And but I worked hard at it. I went everywhere and talked to everybody and did the best I could, and I won big, actually.
And it definitely turned out okay.
Yeah, it turned out okay.
You know, I often think about the time frame, because if you take the time frame of when you were elected to Elgin School Board, 1969, and then you became Treasurer of the United States of America in 1994, 25 years.
Yeah.
That's an amazingly short amount of time to go from that school board to Treasurer of the United States.
Yeah, and you know another thing, I was 42nd Treasurer of Ohio, but I was 40th Treasurer of the United States. I always got a kick out of that because, what did you say, he was the 64th governor?
64th governor.
Yeah, and see, I was the 42nd Treasurer, and now I wonder where, the number on the treasurer would be way up there now. Yeah.
What do you think allowed you to make that progression so quickly? 25 years.
Well, I don't know. I tell you, it's to win an election. I think everything has to be just right, and it's just a miracle, really. I mean, I've defeated 16 men and 1 woman in my career. That's a lot. And there was 6 men running against me in the primary for state treasurer, and then there was also an independent, and then of course Buck Reinhardt the first time. And then the next time I ran, I was the only one that had a primary, and I was a little ticked about that because nobody else had a primary,
Now, why did they primary a sitting treasurer? Who was this?
Some kid from Toledo that had a brother in MCI, and I found that out just as I was sitting waiting to go in for my interview at the Cleveland Plain Dealer, and he's waiting with me, and he tells me that, and it blew my mind. I'm thinking, MCI, he's got a brother in MCI. And I don't know why, it just threw me off base. And things like that can do that when you're running for office. And normally I don't think it would have bothered me, but boy, that did. And then when I had my the main person that ran against me was Jeff somebody. And he came in late to the plain dealer, and he said he was trying to find a left-handed pitcher because he had something to do with the ball team.
Oh.
And and I said, well, that's just the problem. I said, I'm going to give all my time to my job, and
not the ball team.
You're right.
I'll tell you, something interesting though. Mary Ellen joined us at the Marion County Fair this past year, and a story came out there that I had never heard, and it's a good story to tell here today because it speaks to Mary Ellen's career and certainly a creative idea. And everybody I've talked to who heard that broadcast says, "Boy, I wish that would have happened." Was when you were running for state treasurer the first time against Buck Reinhardt.
Yeah.
You wanted to be in a demolition derby.
Yeah.
Now tell how this...
I was at the demolition derby, and I said to Norman, I said, if Buck Reinhardt and I did that, I said, that'd be terrific. So I talked to the fair board, and then and he was all excited. Norman was all excited about it because he said, I got the perfect car for it. Mm-hmm. And because he always had cars sitting around everywhere. and so then they came back and said that the insurance wouldn't allow it. But wouldn't that have been fun?
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Now that would have spiced up that race.
Oh yes, yeah. Buck Reinhardt wanted to debate me, and I refused to debate him. And then the next day in the paper it said he debated himself and lost. And he did. He debated himself and gave out some wrong information. But he was a tough opponent. I only won by 4,000 votes in the state of Ohio. That's not very many.
No, when you if that had happened, what do you think would have happened? Do you think Buck Reinhardt, if the insurance had allowed it, do you think he would have participated in that demolition derby?
I don't know. I think I talked to him about it. I can't remember what he said, but it didn't happen. But
that's an entertaining idea, though.
Yeah. Well, and I had totally forgotten about it until you were talking at the fair to me, and I was thinking of all the things that I did at the fair, that night, which that's why that came up, because I hadn't even thought about that for years.
Now that's a great story. Now that's a story for a book. That's a candid.
Yeah, that should be in my book.
That should be. That's a fascinating story, because when you look at something like that, you look now. This is the early 1980s. You're a woman. It just would have been fascinating.
Yes.
That was really revolutionary thinking. And boy, what did you think it would do for you?
Oh, I thought, I'd get everybody interested in my campaign.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I was trying to get people to know who I was. Of course, I had gone through the license bureau in that process too, before that, trying to get my name known.
How do you do that? Get your name known?
I mean, as running for state treasurer, it's a big deal trying to get people to know who you are all over the state of Ohio. They don't know who you are. I just kept saying I'm the only woman that's running, so they'd know when they saw my name.
It would stick out.
Yeah.
We talked in the last segment about when you had to let people go over the years, that a lot of times you would think, maybe I should have done that differently, I should have handled that differently. Are you a person just in general who second guesses things, or are you pretty? No, just
no.
Yeah.
I always think, if I had, but the things that I did, I think had to be done. I don't think it would have been wise to do it any other way, really. But I always think about trying to think of alternatives, and I think you need to do that.
You know what I think about, which is interesting, and people can do the math, because as we've talked before, they do like to print your age a lot whenever they run a story.
Yeah.
Which, who knows why? I don't think we're ever going to get an answer to why they do that.
Well, I think they like to do it. I think that's why they do it. They like to do it.
But what do you think is the honest underlying reason behind that?
I don't know. The doctor told me the other day that some guy was in the waiting room with me, and he said he knew you. I said I didn't know who he was. He said, well, he knew you. He said, whatever you're giving her, give me twice as much.
I would say the same thing. I'd go along with that. Well, the reason I bring this up is because at your age now, you really left public life because of the 2000 election.
Yeah.
George W. Bush ended up winning that election, so said the Supreme Court of the United States in Florida. Go back and look at that if people want to look at what was going on. But you had said you would have stayed on a few years longer had Al Gore won that particular election. But knowing that you obviously, to this day, are still very active, healthy, 23 years later, do you wish you had continued on in some capacity after that, some other job?
Yes. I would have been happier. I went through real grief,
What would you have liked to have done after your stint ended as Treasurer of the United States? If you could have picked any job, what would you have wanted to do?
I would have worked for one of the departments. I would have, say for instance, savings bonds. I would have liked working with them. And I don't know but it's different when you're appointed, and of course they're all what's the word? They're not appointed. They're what's the word for that? I can't think of it. But it's hard to tell. I did have to have a hip replacement right away because I was limping. And I had that right away after I got out of office.
It's interesting because I think now we have a President of the United States who's going to run again. And at the end of this term, should he win, he would be 85 years old, I believe. And clearly the last president President Trump was the oldest president ever elected at that time. Hillary Clinton would have been into her 70s had she won. Right now, the governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine, I believe is the oldest governor we've ever had. He's in his 70s. And at the time you left your position, because of the 2000 election, you were not 70 yet.
Yes, I was.
Were you? In
71.
Just 71.
Yeah.
But I guess that would be considered fairly normal now to continue on if you had wanted to continue on in politics.
Well, it seems like it.
Yeah.
It depends on a lot of things, so whether you can do that or not.
If Al Gore had won, how long would you have liked to have stayed in that position?
Well, it depended on my health,
Yeah.
Yeah. But I worked at it really hard when I was there. I just traveled all the time, and I just was really... I don't think a lot of the treasurers do nearly as much as I did, from what I can observe.
You talked about having a down period after that election. How did you get out of that down period?
Well, I went to this grief seminar at the National Cathedral. I said everybody else there had lost their husband. I had lost an election.
Well, why do you think that hit you hard?
Oh, gosh, it was terrible what happened. I mean, think we wouldn't have had 2 wars. How different the world would have been. I mean, George Bush spent money like it was going out of style. And, I mean, he ran the debt up terribly and then won a second election, which I never thought he'd win the second election, but he did. And, he couldn't give a decent sentence.
He did have some interesting speeches over the years.
Yeah.
Going into that election of 2000, in that November, how did you think things were going? When Gore was running against Bush, as the election was approaching?
Well, I thought he should have had Dick's... Clinton help him, but he was mad at Clinton. He was so disgusted. It was pretty bad. Yeah, but I think Clinton could have been a big help to him.
Now, you had said earlier that Governor Celeste reminded you of Bill Clinton in a lot of ways. What are the similarities that you felt these two men
It's
had?
their personalities. They were so outgoing and so good with talking to people. People didn't like Clinton, and they'd meet him, and then they'd like him. And the same way with Celeste. He had the ability. They both had that ability, and they were both really good at being with people.
Everybody says that about Bill Clinton, that if you don't like him and you didn't vote for him, if you're in a room with him, you can't not like him.
That's right.
What is it he does for somebody who's been in the room with him?
He is so outgoing. I mean, he, like, somebody does something nasty to him one day, he'll ask him to play golf with him the next day, I mean, that's the way he approaches people. He doesn't hold a grudge.
The most fascinating thing I ever heard about Bill Clinton, obviously he beat George H.W. Bush in '92, causing him not to get a second term. And yet, they became great friends later on in life. Yeah. And not only did they become great friends, Barbara Bush even warmed up to him at one point. And she used to use a line, and I guess she would say, "My boy Bill," and then Bill Clinton would get up and say, "Those Bushes will do anything to get another president in the family." Bill Clinton could be funny like that, even with the Bushes.
Yeah, he was good at that.
Yeah. Do you find it easy to interact with the other party, the Republican Party?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, unless they're not nice to me.
Well, I think about Governor Voinovich that we talked about earlier. Why are some people like that? It seems like that has become more prevalent now than ever before.
Yeah, it's always been pretty bad. I mean, you read about Lincoln and the people back then. Can you imagine what that was like? We think it's bad now. I think it's probably horrible then.
Well, why do you think politics is personal?
Well, it's your beliefs, and you don't understand why other people believe such crazy stuff.
And it's hard to gel. I mean, it's a very it's a fascinating thing because almost in all other walks of life, not that there isn't conflict in other businesses, but politics seems to be highly personal. And people never forgive people on certain things, and it just seems to stick around forever.
Yes, yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you, Mary Ellen, when you were going from school board to the driver's license bureau to county treasurer to state treasurer to treasurer of the United States, were you thinking about that when you were doing it? How did these progressions happen?
It had to be certain people asked me, and it wasn't just anybody. It had to be certain people, and but then when I was U.S. Treasurer and they tried to get me to run for governor, everybody asked me to run. That it was, I think, what was the year 90? Let's see, it was 90, 94, 90, 98, maybe. No, it would have been 98. So it would have been 96 for the state. Yeah. I was, U.S. Treasurer, and I thought I every night I'd get a phone call when I got home from the office. There would be some of the top, all the top people called me, yeah.
Did you ever give it real consideration?
No, not at that point I didn't, because I thought, why would I want to do that? I'm happy here. I loved what I was doing, and I didn't want to go back to the state.
I heard a conversation the other day, Mary Ellen. I'm interested to get your opinion on this because you've dealt with money, clearly a lot of you in your life. And somebody was talking to me about a job decision that they were going to make, and they were making that decision solely based on the money.
How much they were making?
How much they were making.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I think about your career. Did money ever play a part in it?
No.
Yeah.
I used to say, I'm having such a good time, they don't even have to pay me. But I said, don't let anybody hear me say that. Yeah. No, I never cared about that at all.
How much did you love your positions?
Oh, I loved them, all of them. I just was so happy doing all of them. I had such a good time, yeah.
When you were growing up, you've said that politics was not really in your mind at that point, running for anything when you were growing up. Did you ever think that you'd fall in love with something that much? A career? No,
I didn't have any idea. Yeah.
Did you ever have any other career in mind?
Mm-mm. No, I was starting, into music, and then I didn't want to go to college and take music, and I know I could have taken something else, for heaven's sakes.
It turned out okay, though.
Yeah,
you did all right. I think. Do you ever think about that when you look back of the choices you made? Had you went to college for music, you might have never been around to do the Elgin School.
I might have been doing something totally different, probably teaching music somewhere. Yeah.
It's interesting. What was there ever a fork in the road in your life where you consider that the turning point?
Well, yeah, between when I became U.S. Treasurer and when I was running for governor, that was a real turning point, and I'm happy I did what I did.
There was a lot of discussion. Recently I saw a newspaper article where, there was a big discussion that you were going to run for governor. Had you not gotten the call from Washington, do you think you'd run for governor?
Yeah.
Oh, you would, definitely.
Yeah, I would have, yeah. I was well on my way, yeah.
And how far along were you when that call came?
Well, I'd had a big fundraiser, and I'd raised quite a bit of money. And I was, I was getting prepared for it, and I was thinking about who I was going to have where and how I was going to manage the whole thing. And then it all came to a halt when I got the call. I didn't do any more thinking about running for governor. I was hoping to get the treasurer's job at the in Washington, and it was a delightful job. Yeah.
You know, Mary Ellen, we talk a lot and have talked a lot over the years about the things you've done for women and men in politics, and people certainly from Marion. You've shown that you can start here and go to the height of your field, which I think is a very nice thing for every kid now growing up in Marion, Ohio, to learn and understand. When you look at the whole thing, not just for women, but for somebody who stayed active past the age of 70, what's the key to that?
Key to what?
To being active after retirement age?
I just, well, people will ask me to help them. It started with helping people run for office, and I liked that. I don't know that I was a big help to anybody, but that's how I stayed active. And then, you know, at Primrose, they wanted to hang the things in a room, and then it became a museum.
Would it be hard for you to retire, to stay home?
Yes. Oh, I don't want to do that. I want to stay active. I think that's necessary if you can do it. Yeah.
What's important to you at this point in your life? When you get up in the morning, what are things that you enjoy?
Well, just about every day I have something that I have to go to, or usually, I mean, that's my life, and I like that.
What's it like to be Mary Ellen Withrow? For somebody who hears that name, people can Google you, videos, interviews, your name's on the money, Guinness Book of World Records, a museum, schools named after you. What's it like to be that person?
Oh, I'm very fortunate, really. I feel very fortunate. Yeah.
Do want to let people know, and we're going to be fortunate on Monday, July the 31st, because we're going to have a lot of fun. Starting at 8 a.m. in the morning, an interview with Mary Ellen Withrow live from her museum at the Historical Society. 9 to 10 a.m., Governor Dick Celeste will join us. 10 to 10:30, Mary Ellen Withrow and Governor Celeste will be together on air with me. And then 10:30 to 11 a.m., a book signing. Governor Celeste will be at the Historical Society signing In the Heart of It All. And Mary Ellen will be giving tours of her museum from 10:30 to 11 a.m. on Monday, July the 31st, 169 East Church Street here in Marion. Just real quick, Mary Ellen, on August the 2nd, it's the 100th anniversary of the death of President Harding. What does Harding mean to you, the name, the person?
Well, you know, it's very important that he was from Marion. I think we're all proud of that fact.
I think so.
A beautiful memorial. I think the memorial to Harding is one of the prettiest ones. In fact, it may be the prettiest one.
I think you're right, and it's certainly an accolade for Marion to have that structure here. Mm-hmm. Mary Ellen Withrow, 40th Treasurer of the United States. Always a pleasure to be with you, Mary Ellen. It's always an interesting conversation.
It is.
Thank you. July 31st, don't miss it. For Mary Ellen, this is Scott Spears, heading for the dugout.